Blog Talk Radio.
Here at ACO Radio, American Communications Online, or any affiliated stations or websites are not responsible for what guests, hosts, or call-ins may say. All programming is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only.
Hello world, this is T.J. Morris, also known as Theresa J Morris. Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly. We need some help tonight from El Paso, Texas, and I'm not sure which one of the El Paso guys or the Texas guys or the Southwest areas going to show up tonight, but let me see. The theme of tonight's show is Allied Command Organization 2020. We need new heroes. Let's see who's showing up to be a hero. Hello, 915. This is T.J. Morris in Florida. Who is this?
Bruce Cornet.
Well, looky here, folks. We have a hero. Wow, Bruce, congratulations. I guess you're the man of the plan for Texas tonight. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing okay, but I'm not sure where this show is headed.
Well, it's Allied Command Organization, and we need 2020 heroes to step up and share the new narrative. So who will it be? And Ronnie Dawson of Texas had planned on coming, but his wife's got his situation all moved around for Christmas, and he can't get to his stand, and his phone was on 2%. And I can't reach Mad Painter right now. I don't know if he's sick or doing another show. And Ken's box was full, but I know that Friday nights is very important, especially on Facebook for social media, to find out what all we're doing and what events we're going to be sharing and stuff like that. So what it is we've got a book out there for authors. And also in 30 minutes, Robbie Morgan's going to come on, so you'll get to meet him. He's in a meeting right now. But Robbie, I think, is out of Denver. But anyway, you can hold your own with Southwest Region Farmy. You're coming on and getting to be an up-and-coming co-producer, co-host. So thank you for coming. You want to tell people a little about your background? You have a book, too. So why don't you tell people who you are, your book, and also what event you're going to be speaking at, if you don't mind.
Sure, I can do that. I have 13 years of college, 3 degrees in science and geology and paleontology, actually paleobotany and palynology at University of Connecticut and Penn State University. And I graduated in 1977 with a doctorate and went to work for Gulf Research and Development in Houston. And then I worked for Exxon USA for a couple of years, and then I had my own oil company, and we drilled in Virginia. And then with the downturn of the oil industry in the early 80s, making ends meet became very difficult, let's put it that way. And I took a position at Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory in Palisades, New York, working with Dr. Paul Olson, and became the wellsite geologist for his coring project in the Newark Basin. And that lasted until about 1993. And at that particular point, I had been introduced to the UAP phenomenon in the area around Pine Bush, New York. And what was rather amazing to me is that this activity was happening right in the midst of everybody in the Wallkill River Valley of New York, and right next to a military base, and it was being reported on in the Hudson and Wallkill River Valleys, a book called Night Siege by Hynek and Imbrogno back in the mid '80s. Talked about that huge flap of these large ships that were floating over the Hudson River. And then Ellen Crystal did a research project in the early 80s in the area and published a book in 1991, which I read and then contacted her. And the book's name is Silent Invasion. So as an independent geologist and scientist, I wanted to know more about this phenomenon. Unfortunately, I found out that this type of subject was not favored in the halls of academia. It was taboo. And that created a major problem with me and the people I worked with at Lamont Doherty. So I resigned from that position and got married again after my late wife had died and moved to Red Bank, New Jersey, where I continued my research. And recently I finally published an 11-year study in the valley with hundreds of in fact thousands of photographs of unidentified aerial phenomena in the valley. Many of the objects, the lights, the ships, were coming out of the ground and going into the ground. And this is something that most scientists just couldn't accept. They refused to look into the paranormal. And yet I quickly found out that some of my best friends belonged and worked for the CIA, because they were very interested in foreign technology in the area. And as a consequence, I got a full education on our alleged visitors. I finished a book published earlier this year, called Unconventional Aerial Phenomena in the Hudson and Wallkill River Valley of New York. And for those who want to buy it, they can or look at it on Kindle. You can go to Amazon.com. And it's over 400 pages containing hundreds of photographs of what I documented in the field, demonstrating that this phenomena is real and it is living here on an underground basis. Ellen Crystal, in her book, concluded that the phenomenon that she was witnessing was disappearing into the ground and coming out of the ground. And I did a 24 square mile magnetic survey in order to test her theory, and discovered that there's a lot of electromagnetic activity, artificial activity underground. So I essentially documented what she had hypothesized in her book, and my book, in effect, proves that we do not just have visitors, we have non-humans living underground. And they have technology that is way beyond ours. And most of the craft that they fly are angular craft, and they're not circular craft. They're triangles and diamond-shaped craft, and also elongate cigar-shaped craft. So that's what got me started. And then I was offered a position as deputy administrator at National Institute for Discovery Science in Las Vegas. And Dr. Colm Kelleher hired me, hoping that he could save that institute because his boss and the owner, Robert Bigelow, wanted to shut that organization down. But alas, he didn't shut it down. He did shut it down, and I lost my job. I had met a woman on the phone who lived in El Paso, and when she heard about my predicament, she said, "Well, come down here to El Paso, and you can live with me," which I did, and that's where I've been ever since 2004. So,
well, that's a wonderful story, especially the Robert Bigelow name. Now, did you get to? He's very famous, folks. He's also very wealthy, and he's a contractor now, and he helps us in space. So, can you tell us? I'll look up his name while you tell us what you know. But did you ever physically get to be in his presence?
Oh yeah, at least 3 times. For the job interview, then for an introduction, and then finally for a presentation I gave to him. Yes, I did meet him, and I worked in his NIDS building on Polaris Avenue in Las Vegas, and that was a great job. It's too bad he wanted to shut it down, and I was hoping that I would get to go out to the Skinwalker Ranch that he had bought and was had sent a group of researchers out there to study the paranormal phenomena. They could never resolve what was causing it, only know that they were able to document this phenomenon. And I have been in contact with quite a few other people that have gone out to the ranch and have studied the phenomena, and many of whom have had very close encounters with giant wolves and orbs and other types of creatures and UFOs and aliens on the ranch in central Utah. So the phenomena is very real. It's not the only area in Utah that has similar types of phenomena, but this is the one that is the best known and has had a tremendous amount of scientific research done on it. Unfortunately, whatever this phenomena is, it's interdimensional, and that seems to be pretty true at this particular point. And the creatures that come through portals are immune to bullets and bombs. I mean, you can't kill them, but they can kill us, and they can mutilate cattle. So we really don't have a very good hold on or understanding of what we're dealing with and how to interact with it. We seem to be, very ignorant of the other dimensions that our world interfaces with.
That's a very good point. Now, folks, I'm going to just read this to you. I posted his picture on Pinterest, but this is Dr. Bruce Cornet, and he's worked or was presented, and we'll ask him some more if he can release what he presented to Robert Bigelow, whose net worth is approximately $1 billion, in American hotel entrepreneur and space engineer. So he was born in Nevada in 1945. He's a male of the species, and his nationality is United States of America. And now he graduated from the Arizona State with degrees in real estate and banking in the late 60s, and he began building his real estate empire immediately after leaving school. Just 3 years later, he owned 100 apartments in Las Vegas, and he broke ground on a 40-unit apartment building back then, and he now owns the Budget Suites of America hotel chain, among hundreds of other properties in real estate development. And outside of being a real estate mogul, he's one of the world's foremost space exploration enthusiasts. Now, he wholeheartedly believes in aliens and has spent a considerable chunk of his fortune to advance space exploration and all the causes that he represents. Now, Bigelow Aerospace is one of those. So Bigelow Aerospace has hundreds of millions of dollars developed, and they developed a series of inflatable space habitats, and that prototype was currently orbiting the Earth, and he made agreements to build more of them until we get with multiple countries around the world. And he expects that these inflatable stations can be fully habitable in the near future, and the cost per astronaut to stay on an inflatable station for 30 days is about $28,750,000. Guess that's small change to him. But let me see if now, Robert, what were you? We need to update all this. He's an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur is a self-made person that works with companies of their own and is enthused and goes forward. But Robert, Dr. Bruce, what were you doing with Robert Bigelow? I mean, did you, when you talked in front of him, I guess, your presentation?
I worked as a deputy administrator under Dr. Colin Kelleher, who was the administrator, and now Kelleher is working at Bigelow's Bigelow Aerospace company, I basically had a desk job. I wanted to have a field job, but I never got a budget. And my job was to document sightings that people called in through our hotline, and those would be entered into the NIDS database on UFO sightings. And I compiled all the reports that came in to me when I was there for 4 months.
Wow. That's amazing that you got to meet him and worked at that level. That means he wouldn't hire anyone that wasn't pretty intelligent, Dr. Bruce. Do you know anything about anybody else you can share with us of whom you worked with?
Well, interestingly enough, when he had put together a team of people that included Jacques Vallée and Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff. Those two are associated with the intelligence community, and a number of other people that were former FBI and intelligence community operatives. And so he surrounded himself with people who most of whom had worked in the government. And he was also involved with Harry Reid, who was supposedly providing him money for research at the Skinwalker Ranch. And there's a whole list of other scientists that he had hired. Even Linda Moulton Howe was on his team for a short period of time. But this was back in the 90s, and I didn't come on board until 2004. So by then, the research part of the Skinwalker Ranch was winding down. George Knapp, who's a journalist in Las Vegas, worked with Colm Kelleher, and they wrote a book on Skinwalker. And they are the leading experts on that phenomenon, although there are other people now who have gone onto the property and had major experiences. One of whom is Chris Max, who worked for Bigelow in, I would say, for about 4 or 5 years as a guard on the ranch in about 5 to 6 years ago. And he was on Erica Luke's UFO Classified show 3 times, and he had some really close encounters with these creatures that came through the portals. And it's an amazing phenomenon. I guess you really have to go experience them yourself to fully appreciate that this stuff really exists. And what it is, what it represents, we're still in the infant stage of figuring this out. We haven't yet developed enough instrumentation and technology to be able to record it and very well or determine what it is. But it is out there. Ryan Skinner, who has traveled there and done research with Ryan Burns, and they've been on radio shows talking about their encounters with the Skinwalker. Now, the Skinwalker by itself it looks like a Native American Indian that can then shapeshift into a wolf or back and forth. And Chris Max said that he actually saw what appeared to be a upright walking human on top of the cliffs that overlook the Skinwalker Ranch. And then, strangely enough, this was at night, and he saw it fall off and hit the ground. And then it got up and transformed into a wolf and walked away. And when he went to investigate it, he found tracks that looked human-like that transformed into tracks that were wolf-like. So there's been enough of these sightings and encounters to know that whatever this thing is, it defies physics as we know it.
Wow, you are just something, the way that you've been able to develop all this in your own personal accounting of reality, our perception, filters, pursuits, motivation, and it's hard for me to say modernization. Why is that hard? Modernization in 2019. Maybe it's just hard for me. I don't know. Modernization. Well, you've come a long way from being a little kid on the planet, haven't you? Did you want to deal with UFOs and alienology, or did you just, because I consider them separate. The reason is, folks, UFOs started out being mainly about flying saucers and in the paper, and we clipped newspapers, and we went out through the military, and of course you know about Blue Book. If you don't watch History Channel, they've got some shows. We got Ancient Aliens. They've got people coming on Travel Channel and History Channel. Giorgio Tsoukalos, he had a magazine with a lot of history on that. I could go look it up. Do you know the name of Giorgio Tsoukalos magazine, Dr. Cornet?
I've heard of the magazine. I've never looked at it. I've never had a copy.
I haven't either. But anyway, apparently tonight it's going to be building the Allied Command with people that you may or may not have heard of, and we're going to do our best to give you the best accounting we have, either first-hand information as ACI reporters. And a lot of my people that have worked with me have been white hats. And I know that there's many people talking about the Men in Black, and there's a new Men in Black on my birthday yesterday. It was December 26th. And I found it interesting enough to say on my radio show I did for Revolution Radio yesterday about the fact that 12/26 is an important day. I didn't realize how important it was, but it has something to do with all of this Allied Command Organization and the UFO Secret Space Program. Now, I was born on 12/26. That's the day Whitley Strieber had his account, as well as Jim Penniston. Now, are you familiar with those names? I'm sure you are, Dr. Cornet.
Yes, I'm definitely familiar with both of those names, yes. Mostly with Whitley Strieber.
Okay. Well, can you tell us what you know about him?
No. I know very little about him. I would love to have a conversation with him. Yes, I've read his book. But aside from reading his books, I don't know very much about him.
Okay, I don't
I've heard
either.
about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has a radio show and online radio show, and he has a website and a group that I've become a member of his group, so I get his newsletters. But remember, Whitley Strieber has been active all through the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, he got started back in the day, didn't he? Back with the red-haired lady. Well, I'm the red-haired lady now, but the most famous that was on TV, Shirley MacLaine, that way back there, because I was in the military in the 80s. So that came from the 80s.
Yeah, he would have been involved with her back then. Right. Yeah, with Shirley MacLaine.
Yeah, and that's where I saw him on a movie. I saw her movie Out on a Limb in my Great Lakes. I was in my military base, 2-story duplex. It was nice. But I was in the Navy, folks, and I had my funny papers, and I had to call into the intelligence agency, and they changed the number every week. But you would know, working with all those intelligence agents, I guess, Dr. Bruce, tell us about then anything else you know, like Men in Black, the movie. I just watched 3 yesterday, Men in Black 3 with my granddaughter. So do you know anything about Men in Black you can share with us, or any nuclear people or ET people, anything like that?
I know. I have a lot of background in history. I have never met a man in black, okay? I mean, the classic type, with the brim hat and the black suit. I've never met any of those, although I've come close. I was being interviewed by Dan Aykroyd in New York City back in around 2000 for his new show that he was putting together, Beyond Beliefs. And I was there with Sam Sherman, who was a movie producer, and he was promoting me for the show with Dan Aykroyd. And we went in, and I had my interview, and then we left. And then we found out that the show had been canceled. And right after I had left, two men in black showed up in a dark sedan parked across the street from the place where they were having their shooting their films. And what is her name? Who was the actress, the young actress that was associated with Dan Aykroyd? She's quite famous, but she was told Dan Aykroyd was in contact with her, and then suddenly he gets a call from his producer that the show is canceled. And he had gone outside and seen these strange men in black standing next to the sedan, and he turned, and when he turned back, they had disappeared, including the car. And right after that, he got a call from his producer that told him that the show was canceled. So that's the closest I've ever come to being to something that was being censored by whoever these men in black represent. Hello? Theresa? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me now? Wow. Guess we better not say Men in Black anymore. Dr. Bruce, are you still on the planet, or did they zap you? Well, Robbie Morgan was going to call in. Let me see, John Lear. Let's see. Let me see if I can call him. Ringing. He might shoot me. Let's see. John Lear. Ringing. Hold on, folks. This is crazy night. So, what time is it over there with John Lear in Arizona? He's not answering just as well. He's probably scared too. All right, let me try. Okay, I'll hang up. Okay, I'm going to try to call.
What happened?
I don't know. I guess you better not mention Men in Black. They zapped you.
Yeah, it sounds like they were listening in on the show and didn't like my portrayal of them. That they had. So, or the association connection to Dan Aykroyd, but that story was actually published by George Filer in 2017 in Files number 14. So it is an interesting story. It's quite an interesting story, and but there are a lot of things like that have occurred relative to this phenomenon. Are we still back on the air?
Yeah, we're back on the air. I had to call you online because something shut me down and the show was going on and I could see it, but they cut my sound and your sound off so we couldn't talk to each other. I've never had that happen, so I have dead air space, which nobody likes on a radio show. So please forgive me, folks. I don't know what to tell you. I could go back and edit it out, but it may be a while, so I'll just leave it like it is and hope people don't just hang up when they hear dead air and figure out, stay around to see what happens. So this is the rest of the show. I played some music while I was trying to get myself back online, watching the show on my computer, with the board. So I had the audio clips and the board up, photos up, and I find it really strange that I sent this to Janet and Mad, and neither one of them showed up, neither one of my producers, so I'm definitely going to have to train you to help me sometimes, but only if they don't zap us.
Right.
I don't know what, I think, I was like, I couldn't even figure out what was going on. I could see the board and see you and hear you saying hello, but you couldn't hear me. And so you didn't know if you were on or not, but you didn't really have to hang up. You could have kept talking because you were on, but there was no way for you to know that, right? So anyway, you're back here now. So where were we when we were rudely disassembled in space radio waves?
Well, we were talking about Men in Black, and I don't have any personal contacts with them. And, there are a lot of stories out there. They seem to have been much more common in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And ever since, the 90s and 2000s, you don't, haven't been many reports of them that I know of. They still occur, but only occasionally. I guess it's largely because the subject has become so well known among people trying to threaten somebody and prevent them from sharing their sightings, and is pointless now.
Yeah, I often wondered if they were from another planet or another dimension, but I knew here in the intelligence agency when we wanted to make sure people knew who we were or intimidate someone, they'd send the Men in Black, because when I was moved from Hawaii to the mainland, I was putting in jobs, but apparently the government didn't want me to. They wanted me to do what they wanted me to do. So they sent some Men in Black to tell this lady. They knew that we had internet, but not like we do now in 94, because we waited till Windows 95. But I guess the government always had this stuff because they could listen in on you, and I don't know how, because I didn't have a cell phone. But my husband in the government had given me one of these, looks like a cell phone now, but it was not Sharper Image. Was it Sharper Image? It was some company thing where you had your all your people in it. It's like we got today a smartphone, but it wasn't. It was one of those calendar contact things we used to carry around with a beeper or something. Do you remember anything like that? That's what I had. But the Men in Black showed up and told this lady to tell me to stop applying for jobs and to tell me that the Men in Black came by and said, and tell you you're not going to get any job. So I was like, what the heck? What? I mean, a lady, but she looked scared. She said, look, she was like a secretary or something outside this big office where I was applying for a job. And I guess they wanted me working in the government, or maybe I did work for the government and wasn't aware of it, I guess, because my husband brought me from Hawaii over to the mainland with him. But I guess I was just ignorant. So the Men in Black did show up. And the woman told me, so they said to tell you, Men in Black suits showed up and told her
when
to
was
tell
this?
me to stop. This was in
what
94.
Year? 94?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were still showing up in 2000. right now, today, I don't know. I haven't heard of any more recent sightings. I'm sure they have occurred, but there's a lot more interest now in the paranormal, and because of radio shows and cell phones and the the streaming of videos and movies is so common now with these shows, Ancient Aliens and History Channel, Travel Channel, dealing with ghosts and the paranormal. It's amazing that so many people still haven't tuned into these shows. That is what has surprised me. And yet I run into people who say, I can't stop watching them. I watch every episode that I watch. And so we have this divided community out there of people who are very familiar with the subject of non-human ET visitation or presence on Earth, and those who are not.
And then the movie industry, right? And I don't know which side the movie industry's on. Do you, for or against, like Men in Black?
If it makes money, they're in favor of it. That's the primary objective, of turning over money and making a profit on all of this. And they need, reviews and people who go to the theater and are interested in this. But because of all of the producers that are generating shows on these subjects, more and more people are starting to tune into them. That I truly believe. And so people are getting used to the idea. Whereas back when I first got involved in all of this in 1992, it was a field where there was quite a split crowd. I remember on television shows on the subject, they would always have a debunker on the show that would try to come up with some natural or normal explanation for what had been cited or seen by one of the people on the show. And now, more recently, you see the show that is all pushing just the UFO phenomena or the ET phenomena. But recently I saw a Travel Channel show that I was rather surprised, because it's the first one I've seen in decades that had a debunker on it. And it was funny. But and on the internet now also, you have a lot of debates going on over certain descriptions of artificial anomalies on the moon and on Mars, for example. And so it looks like there is an opening for those who want to become a professional debunker. And maybe these are just being pushed by the intelligence community in order to alleviate any fear or concern in the public for those who can't accept this. And believe me, there are many people who cannot accept the idea that ET is here or that the paranormal even exists.
Really?
Yeah, my colleague who
right?
my colleague who is a professor with tenure at Columbia University, and with whom I worked ever since he was in high school, and we published many papers, co-authored many papers together, all the way up until 1993, and starting back in the 70s. And he recently told me that he does not believe in the paranormal. And he says he will not talk about the subject. And he will not read my book. And I said, well, is that ever a closed mind?
Yeah.
But that, unfortunately, is the type of situation you get in academia, where a person's credibility and position and income is dependent on taking that position. If you can understand. And it's largely pushed by the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation, which approves grants for employees of universities, researchers, and that's where a lot of their money comes from, and university money comes from. If that dries up, those professors and researchers get fired. Okay? So the situation that we imagine having been in the military, where nobody can talk about this subject because it's taboo, well, that still exists within the colleges and universities today, even though there are some universities. Pardon?
I'm sorry. We have a delay. Were you in the military or contractor? Either way.
No, I wasn't. I was always, in the educational pathway to college degrees and working, using my skills and knowledge for the oil industry. That is where I earned most of my income through most of my professional career. It's only in the last, well, now it's about 30 years that I have been outside or 25 years outside of the academic realm. I have many scientific papers that I've written and or co-authored that are in the literature, and you can get them online. But that area of research is pretty much stopped because I'm no longer connected to university with a laboratory, with microscopes, with processing, chem labs, and things like that. So I don't have access to those facilities and tools to be able to continue my profession. What I do have is the ability to write. And of all of the work that I did between 92 and 2003 out in the field, that information is very current and very relevant to the subject of paranormal and UAP and the existence of non-humans here on Earth. There's quite a bit that's been going on, Theresa, that people don't realize. And because most people are just concerned with their jobs and their families and, making enough money to survive. And anything beyond that, it really is irrelevant to them unless it directly impacts their lives. And of course,
that's common, right? If you can't eat it or make money with it, I guess, or make babies with it, it's just, unless it entertains you, maybe that's what we're here for, is to entertain.
Right. More and more is entertainment. And that is, for example, how many shows have you seen or heard about on television? The Ancient Aliens is the one that comes up, and Ancient Astronauts and all of these shows that deal with sightings and contact with technology which we did not develop. So I've had quite a bit of contact with that technology and these beings in my lifetime. And I didn't know I had that contact, Theresa. Back in 1981, I was the president of an independent oil company drilling in Virginia, near Richmond, Virginia. And we drilled a couple deep wells there and found a hell of a lot of oil, but the oil industry collapsed right at that very time. And the company, our partner, pulled out. And so it left us beached like a whale and without any income. All of that exploration dried up, and we never did complete any of those wells. The oil that we discovered in 81 to 85 is still there in the ground, right next to Richmond, Virginia. And the amazing thing is that a lot of people who work in Washington, D.C. Have residences in and around the Richmond area, and it's become a Beverly Hills, literally, in parts and over the oil fields that we discovered. And unfortunately, I've never really bothered to check to find out if anybody's gotten back involved, but I suspect they haven't, because getting land leases, the landmen would have a hell of a time trying to piece together enough permits to drill on property where you have $100,000 and $1 million homes, one right after another on top of an oil field, just like Beverly Hills. And without any producing wells in the area, the oil companies won't get back involved. Well, that was what I was involved with back in the early 80s, and it was also the time when I was abducted by non-humans in a craft hovering next to the well site, and my entire drill crew saw me being taken and being returned. And I was returned with physical injuries, serious physical injuries. And I'm not going to
oil, because the one I was telling you about in '94, they took me out. They didn't talk to each other. They used ESP because they kept looking at me and acting like they were talking, but their mouths didn't move. They were humans, I guess. Maybe they were ETs. But they went over to, it was in the oil rig area, and a guy was drilling, or maybe he was doing a post hole digging, but it was in front of one of those oil things in Oklahoma. So the Oklahoma oil. But that is odd that they had extraterrestrial intelligence officers and oil together. You're the first one that's mentioned that, like Men in Black night. But what would that be about? I've always wondered, because I have the vision of sitting in this man's big Cadillac, just like it needed the horns on the front of it, one of those big long Cadillacs. I had one
right.
like it, or my husband did, in Hawaii, so I assumed the intelligence agency was using all the things that I liked or had in my memories, or the extraterrestrials did. But I was sitting there looking at the fence posts, which I'm sure you've seen, wire and post, and they were big, but a man was sitting there, I think he was drilling a post on a fence, or not. He was drilling something with a hand auger, a big long pole with a T-cross on it and twisting it, which I don't know what that was, I guess. But they kept looking at me, but their mouths weren't moving. But I got the distinct feeling they were going to talk to each other, because he told me he was going to pick up, I don't know if his son or somebody, and we were going to eat, and they didn't talk the whole time in the car, and then they didn't talk. He told me not to talk. And then when they got through eating, and, the only thing I was allowed to do is order what I ordered at the restaurant, and they sat there and didn't talk to each other. So by the time they were through and getting up, I said, well, wait, aren't y'all going to talk? He said, we already did. And they got up and paid for lunch, and we walked out. And I've been spooked ever since.
Well,
it was over oil.
One of the things that I have been introduced to, and this is something that I think the biggest secrets that the government has tried to keep from the public, is that many of these non-humans are actually walking around as humans. They look like humans, okay?
Oh, I believe
but they
that.
They have telepathic capability. They have access to the technology, and they don't want the public to know that they're here. It's not so much the government that is keeping the secret as the ETs that are keeping the secret from the public, because they are literally.
Yeah, go ahead. Literally.
They are literally everywhere. I mean, I even was married to one for 7 years, and I didn't realize.
About that. I was too, but I wondered about that, Bruce, because they told me never ever say anything to anybody ever. And I was like, I don't know anybody. I mean, I was getting divorced, and I didn't know anybody. But I never could figure out till right now, talking to you, why would they tell me to never ever mention any? And I didn't even know what they were referring to. I'm like, what? I can't even hear you guys. I don't know what y'all are talking. What would I never talk about? The fact that their mouths didn't move? Maybe that's what they told me to never ever talk about. I mean, what would be so secret that you can't hear it?
Well, that is slowly coming to the public awareness. That is part of the disclosure. That it's that most people think that ET, thanks to Hollywood, look different than we do. Okay, I mean that, but there are a lot of them that literally transfer their consciousness into a human body, and they live among us. They walk with us. I mean, when my late wife, after she died, at her cemetery, my mother and I were there to say the farewell, and her spirit appeared over her grave. And I caught it on camera, a video camera, and it's on the internet under a short book, a story about her called The Passion of Bonnie. And then I was telepathically told to turn off the camcorder, which I wish they hadn't done, and a second sun appeared at the base of an overhead cumulus cloud and sent down a beam of golden light that captured her spirit. My mother and I saw it rise up in that beam into that second sun. This was in 8:31 in the morning, and the true sun had barely cleared the trees to the east. And once her colors of her spirit went up into that second sun, the beam was retracted, and the light went out. But it wasn't until about 5 or more years later that technology advanced to the point that many people could have their own computers, PCs, in their homes, and software for manipulating photographs and videos was available. And through Photoshop and through various programs, I captured frames from that video and enhanced them. And I found a huge dome-shaped white circular mothership embedded in the cloud over Bonnie's grave. And so it became clear that she was an ET. And then she came back to me in spirit and communicated with me and told me who she was and what organization, ET organization she's part of. So this is nothing new to me. I mean, I've been part of their program ever since. I lived with her and didn't have the slightest clue that she was somebody not of this world, so to speak. But she had extremely advanced psychic capability. She taught me 2 months before she died how to communicate with her telepathically, to recognize her thoughts in my head. And then after she died, she continued to communicate with me. She told me where she wanted to be buried, which I followed. And when I first met her, she told me she was very psychic, precognitive. She could see into the future. She was clairvoyant. She could move objects with her mind, which she demonstrated. She could control electronics with her mind, which she demonstrated. And she had been tested by the Princeton University Paranormal Lab and virtually scored 100%. So that information is available, I'm sure, if for somebody who would research it. But Bonnie was an extraordinary human, but she was born to a human mother on Earth. And if you have birth papers, if you have a birth date, nobody's going to suspect that you're anything but human, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've got a piece of paper, but I've died a few times, gone out of body, come back, work with ETs, work with people that apparently can talk. Now, I've worked with some I can hear. I guess they want you to, you can, and I don't know how they turn it on and off. But I'm here to tell my story now, but I didn't know it was going to be like tonight, and I didn't know, because believe me, we sound nuts to those people that don't have any awareness or open mind. You can't be unbiased and biased when you're trying to live the balance and stay sane. You got to open your mind to other possibilities that aren't in your reality, because when we're kids, we don't even know all the colors in the color box. And it's
right.
Not much difference when you're an adult. You can still find all kind of weird fuchsias and magentas, and, they're just, if they're not in the rainbow, the basic red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But a lot of people, they only see the rainbow, but there's other colors. I don't know if that's a good analogy or allegory or whatever example, but you know what I'm saying. And that's what I think you and I are talking about. Is the fact that a lot of people just are not open to it, so the others of us go along together in some kind of tribe or go on to the next level or the next universe, I don't know, or next planet or I worked with people from Andromeda because they didn't know how to tell me. They said they found us on the planet. And my husband said the same thing. They found us. It was well over 500,000 years ago, but they said they found us eating with the animals, grass along with the water. And I was like, what? So I don't think they made us, the ones that were protecting, like guardians of the galaxies or the universe. They found us here. So they were over 500,000, if not a million. But they said, my husband and I were comparing their extraterrestrial like explorers. But my husband, all he could say is they put their pants on the same way we did, and they looked like us. But they had some little grays working with them, and they said, of course, they're playing it. The ones we worked with, there's all kinds of those out there too. But there's the tall and the short, and this color gray and that color gray, and there's some pale blues and stuff. But that was common talk, but it wasn't when we started. It's sort of like me and you tonight. We're just starting to get to know each other. A little more is coming out for you and me. I mean, because I knew your story about your wife, and and people have learned you about that, but not, and a little bit about Bigelow, but not that much. So we're really starting to get to know each other. But this Allied Command Organization, 2020 New Heroes, I didn't even know what tonight was going to be about, because I started this with Ken Johnston and Mad Painter, and Janet wanted to be in it, and you've talked to Janet. So this is very curious to me, Dr. Cornet. There's got to be something we're doing right, even if it's for the ones that don't know anything, because maybe they'll come to the reality that awareness is more than the 7 colors of the rainbow, so to speak.
Yes. You're absolutely right. That and with language, it's the same problem. With our minds, if we don't have a word for something, we might not even know it exists. We have to identify and name everything, and that's how our brain works.
I know that I'm waking up to the reality with you that there's little simple things that I didn't think were that important. I'm hearing me say, but I've always known it, and it happened to me, but it didn't make any sense. But hearing you talk about it too, with the oil, for some reason, with the bushes and these princes, I talked about it. I think on my birthday on the other radio channel, Revolution Radio Channel, with a Mad Painter. They call it Freedom's Lips or Freedom's Lips. We started that with Mike Ringley, January 1st, 2011 or 12. Anyway, we're about the same time, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do more recording or not. It depends on who wants to pay for it and archive it, right? And I don't mind helping anybody with all that. And I do one show with Janet on Thursdays, Portal Stargate, for their chat room and their website. And you and I are doing for ACIR. Did you get a copy of that, ACIR.com? Did see your book and your picture? ACIR.
I haven't seen it on your websites yet. I've seen it on Janet's website, but not on yours.
Okay, I sent you where you can get in, so maybe you are important to me and the ETs, because I guard their secrets and what they give me with my life. Now, let me see. I sent it to you, but why didn't you see it? But then after being cut off tonight and you couldn't hear me, for some reason that doesn't surprise me. So let me look up, what would that be? ACIR. I think it's radio.com on my company. My company, which had to be approved by the government, and Dun & Bradstreet is a government contractor, and they called me out of Austin, Texas, which I don't understand. Does Texas mean anything to you? Oh, wait, you're in Texas.
Right.
Wait, what am I saying? Well, they had to approve for me to do what I'm doing. And I don't know what's going on, but I know that this is a curious thing. And why would I put you in ACIR? But let me look and see. Hold on. I'm going to look ACIR radio. I think it's ACIR radio. Here it is. Log in ACIR. I have 3 attempts remaining. I don't want to get in on my WordPress right now. So it is ACIRradio.com that you're on, Bruce. ACIRradio.com, and then it's American Communications Online. And then right now you're broadcasting live on TJ Morris ET Radio, my personal channel. And it's well known, and it's established in iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Castbox. I said iHeart, didn't I? Sonos. All kinds, because I've been paying for years to get it out there on these. And some of them you don't have to pay. They pick you up. You have to have so many episodes. I've got 802 on file. I got rid of a lot of them because I didn't realize I was an archivist, but for some reason I didn't know I was going to keep doing radio. So I may miss a bill or something and didn't think about it, but they kept archiving them. I thought, well, that's curious. So I just started paying it and keeping it and went on back in. So it says upcoming broadcast, Allied Command Organization, 2020 News Heroes. We're live on the air in Paranormal, but we're broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio out of New York. TJ Morris ET Radio is the brand. Now, our club is ACO Club. It says Alien Contact Organizers, Dr. Bruce Cornet and Theresa J Morris. So they're letting us do that. And then ACIR, Allied Command Investigative Reporters. And also we have Allied Command Intergalactic Reporters, either or. It's interchangeable. So it's like you said, the words. See, not even you working in biology in the oil business made sense to me. But now it sort of does, because that's how I got started with the extraterrestrials in 94, the Men in Black. And that's odd to me. Now, the Men in Black would keep up with me when I was in Hawaii, and they'd come watch me do readings and stand over me. I don't know if they were trying to intimidate me or what. And then when I'd go swimming at Hanoma Bay, my daughter would ask me, who are those Men in Black standing up there? And why? It's so hot, Mom. That doesn't make sense. Are you making them wear those suits? You know, because I was sort of a president, CEO type of person and had bodyguards. But I used somebody assigned. You know who Tom Selleck is? He Magnum PI.
Yeah.
Well, he had a club in Hawaii, and I used to hang out, and we had the same bodyguards. So my daughter thought maybe that was who was guarding me, you know, back then. And I didn't know who these Men in Black were. I know that when Clinton came over to the Hilton, and I lived in a big mansion a couple of doors down from the Kahala Hilton. Well, not a couple. It's about 6 mansions down. It's on the same street as the Kahala Hilton. But the Men in Black walked alongside my Cadillac when I was trying to go to work, and they wanted me to stay out of the way, and I had to get to work, so it didn't matter. It's the only road. There was the ocean, the road, and that was it. And, you know, I couldn't go in the ocean, so I was going to stay on the road. But this Men in Black thing is, I watched it yesterday. It's called MIB International. And it has a new little girl, and it was really good. It wasn't, I mean, it was cute, but it was good. I was sort of shocked. At least the part I got to watch. I didn't get to watch all of it. So have you seen Men in Black International yet?
No, I haven't. I didn't even know they had another movie out. I think I saw an advertisement for it. Yeah.
Let me see if it is. But what it is I like movies, and I like to be entertained. And I know that the extraterrestrials find us very entertaining, and I'm leaning towards that. But you're starting to make me understand more. MIB International Review. I wonder, because they had that really good-looking man that plays Thor. His name is, he plays Agent H, Chris Hemsworth. Have you heard of him? He's the big guy, looks like Thor. He plays Thor in a movie. So I guess he looks like Thor. Big, tall guy, played Thor with a hammer, throw it. But his name is Chris Hemsworth. I wonder if I can get a background on him. Okay, here we go. Christopher Hemsworth is an Australian actor. He rose to performance playing Kim Hyde in Australian TV, Home and Away, before beginning a film career in Hollywood by taking on parts in science fiction, Star Trek, and the thriller A Perfect Getaway. It doesn't mention him playing Thor, but that's how I knew him, because I'm into superheroes, which tonight is about. So he played Thor in the movie 2011, Thor Ragnarok in 2017. He was in Men in Black International in 2019, folks, and he's played Avengers Endgame 2019 and the Avengers 2012. Now, he's very good looking, and he is like a major player, being very tall, very handsome, and he has a large following, and he's a superhero. He's Thor. But he's also the most famous Men in Black. But he's only 36. He was born August 11th, 1983, but he's 6'3". So he has the height, right? And he has children. He has Indian Rose, Tristan, and Sasha Hemsworth, 3 children. He's been on Home and Away, Dancing with the Stars. Darn it, I missed him on Dancing with the Stars. I'll have to go find that. Gwyneth Jones. But folks, trying to combine reality in movies and positions, you know, it's sort of strange that we do this anyway. So how much is real and how much is there's information, disinformation, and misinformation, we know. So always think about not just black or white or right or wrong or positive or negative or sun and moon. You know what I'm saying, Bruce? There's more. The balance is in the part we don't know. Robert
there's so much untruth out there that's being promoted as truth that people cannot, we as humans cannot distinguish between truth and a lie. We need evidence.
Reality, right?
Yeah.
Empirical evidence is a lot of people. But what about spirituality? There's a lot of stuff that, of course, this is all blending together, not thanks to quantum physics. Science and art, and it's quantum physics. But we got to do better with this Allied Command Organization. Now, what do you think of the second part of? Well, there's new heroes. Who will it be? We will bring the balance to both order and chaos with our communications of thoughts and opinions, of our perceptions of both arts and sciences with our Ascension Age Seances, which is really like you and I are doing now. And we've got the veterans and storytellers of the Authors Book Club, so I'll invite you to get your book in there. And then Allied Command Organization, Department of American Communication Online. I've got Dr. Bruce Cornet, Ph.D., Allied Command Organization, and ACIR, Allied Command Internet Reporter. And then we've got ACR Radio. So we'll put this with ACR Radio and probably tonight's Allied Command, which is org ACO Revolution Radio Club, maybe, even though Matt didn't show up tonight. He's probably sick. It's Friday night and it's holidays, folks, till New Year. So I've decided I'm going to try to do this daily to get some information out there. We're doing Tuesday UFO Digest with Robert Morningstar, UFO Association with Jan Aldrich, and then Robert's going to help me with the UFO Digest. And he and I do radio shows with Revolution Radio already. Well, what do you think, Bruce? Because we want to get back on track with you, but also, what do you think about these 2020 superheroes going, have you got any that you know about or anything in the movies? Because we're going to have the real deal, but we're also going to use superheroes and the Comic-Con and events, and you're going to be going to an event.
Well, my understanding of superheroes is that they require technology to give them the powers that they have. Okay, that's my limited knowledge of what superheroes can be. I mean, when I grew up, they would put on a uniform or a cloak, and they'd suddenly have these powers. Well, I think we could grow up to realize that that's not how it works. But then again, there are people that have unusual psychic abilities. That my late wife, Bonnie, she had extraordinary abilities, but she rarely used them. And that's about the extent to which I understood what was going on. That her capability of healing the human body, of reading minds, of levitating and things of this nature was something that most people don't have. Now today you hear about the hybrid children. Well, hybrids aren't necessarily part ETs and or grays or whatever you can imagine being an extraterrestrial. They are genetically modified humans. They are part of the next generation of humanity on this planet, and they are being born to women at an alarmingly high rate. They tend to be called star children, and I've met them. I know that this is actually occurring, and the question is it for replacement of us, or is it for an enhancement and evolution of the human race as a whole? But they have special abilities. I mean, we hear more and more about children who have extraordinary mental capabilities, who score very high on IQ tests when they're in elementary school, for example. So abilities can be transferred to humans from previous lifetimes. Now we're finding this to be part of what is actually happening, that while children can have extraordinary abilities that they probably acquired from a previous lifetime, and that this was passed on to their current lifetime. But we've had, unfortunately, a lot of lies being perpetrated by the established governments and religions of our past that have told us that we don't, the reincarnation does not occur, that we don't get recycled here on Earth. But now we're finding out through very scientific studies that this is exactly what is happening. And we're also getting more souls and coming from other worlds to planet Earth, bringing with them a lot of abilities that they had on those other planets. So when you're talking about superheroes, you're really talking about people with extraordinary capabilities above and beyond that of the normal human. And I think that a lot of things that we see coming out of Hollywood, look at the technology that we've seen through various sci-fi movies. Now we're getting to the point where we're seeing that technology is true. It's real. We have created it. We invented it. It is in our world today. Who would have ever imagined that you could hold this little rectangular object in your hand and talk to anybody or see anybody anywhere in the world? I mean, 50 years ago, that was an inconceivable concept. But yet we had comics, Dick Tracy, who had this watch that he could see and talk to other people in other parts of the world.
Yeah, I never looked at it like that, but I wore one of those Dick Tracy watches when I was a kid. I remember they were plastic, but
yeah, plastic, right? But they have become real. It's as if we are being educated. If we have our roots, genetic roots, with primates, with the different types of apes of this planet, there's been a gradual education and modification of our DNA so that we would become more and more like those who want to walk on this planet in human bodies. So there was one movie that I saw. It was, I believe, originally made in black and white. It was back in the 50s or 60s, I think the 60s, called They Live. And it was about this alien race that had taken over the world and that most people could not see. They were hypnotized to believing that these aliens looked like them. But there was these special glasses. And if you put the glasses on, you could distinguish between a true human and an alien. And I was deeply affected by that because the implication was that E.T. doesn't have to conquer us and come here and destroy us with weapons. They just have to replace us. without us realizing that we are being replaced.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I guess we better keep this under paranormal tonight.
Yeah. So the more you see, hear about extraordinary people, and especially not just in IQ, but in physical capabilities, we are very weak hominid. I mean, if we compare our physical bodies to those of the chimpanzee or the gorilla or any of the other primates, they are 5 to 10 times stronger than we are. Why? Why are we so weak? Why is our spine and lower backs so poorly designed for the gravity on this planet? And there are a lot of other problems that one has to ask is, if God created us, why did he make us such weaklings on this planet? Even though we have the capability of inventing things and conquering the world, taking it over, who are we doing this for? Why are we doing this? Could this be, maybe this Anunnaki had it right. We are their slaves. And, when you look at our industrial complex, military aerospace industrial complex, are we building these machines that go out into space for ourselves, or are we doing it for somebody else?
I think it's both. Somehow, I feel like I'm involved, and
yes.
I feel like you are too. But maybe certain people are chosen. Maybe it's my past lives, because I've died 3 times in this life, just like Bonnie, and I have a story to tell, and I've gone the spiritual route, and I know that she did. And you're even giving a talk at UFO MegaCon, which is in Laughlin, the other Vegas, with Bob Brown. You want to tell us a little about that? Because we've got 30 minutes left, but we lost some in between. I don't know how much, 10 minutes or so, but I don't know how to fix it unless I go back and fix it and edit it, but I usually don't. But we've got some pretty good information out there today, considering that I didn't know I was going to do it, but I did put it out there on Facebook.
Well, thank you.
So what's going on with this
mega conference?
Yeah, I'd like you to tell us what you know about Bob, because I don't know how big it's going to be, but he's been doing this for years and years, but he didn't really want to talk about himself, but he needs to get out and market himself and why he's doing what he's doing as a 2020, superhero kind of guy. We're doing this.
Yeah, I would have to put him in that category with what the energy he's putting out and the things that he's accomplishing. He's told me on a phone conversation that when he started out, Giorgio Tsoukalos was on his board. Did you know that?
I think you told me, and I've been really impressed because I watch him, because he and Philip Coppins did an event up in Minnesota with Richard Dolan and Karen, my friend Karen Dolan, when she was friends with me and Kathleen, married to Philip Coppins. I had a past life with a lot of these people, so somehow they brought me into this, and that's how Giorgio got involved. And then Bob Brown, which I've never met, but his name keeps coming up in my life, so I'm thinking we have a past life. Probably you and I do too. So what do you know about him, besides Giorgio Tsoukalos?
Well, with Wendell Stephen was also one of his partners. Also, and unfortunately, Wendell has passed on. But they started this in Laughlin many years ago. I don't know exactly when they started this, but it's been successful enough that they're continuing. And Bob and his partner Gordon were at the Coffee 11 conference in Albuquerque in August of this year.
What is Gordon and what is coffee? Are you talking coffee?
The coffee it's an acronym, COFE 11. It means the Conference of Future Energy, okay, in Albuquerque. That's what it stands for. And it was held in conjunction with, along with, Extraordinary Technology Conference. Okay, that was run by Steve Ellswick. And I gave talks at both of those conferences in August. And there are 90-minute conferences, or talks, and Bob and Gordon listened to both of them, and they were totally blown away. And they offered me a opportunity to talk at their conference in Lockham in February of this next year. Also,
are you going to talk about unconventional aircraft and performances, or part of disclosure of hardware? Because I'm looking at this Coffee 11. It says you were a special speaker, Bruce Cornet.
Yes.
You were like keynote speaker at this. And
yes, I was.
Who's this Gordon you keep talking about? Who Gordon? What?
I forget his last name. I have it, on my emails. I'd have to check for it. I apologize for not memorizing his last name. But
it's not Gordon Ramsay, right? Gordon Ramsay.
No. No, it wasn't.
Would he be on the brochure or the poster that you sent me? I know Bob Brown sent me. He said, because I was doing Lorian Fenton's from a year ago, and he said, here, if you want to promote something, use this one instead. I went, okay. But I haven't put it out there on anything yet, so I need to do that.
Well,
what?
Well, he heard both my talks, and my two talks weren't the same. I had material in one that I didn't have in the other, and vice versa, okay, because I have so much material. I have over 137 close encounters with documented, and most of them are documented with time exposures and video, and/or video. And he had never seen anything, so much scientific data being presented. And even though there are no clear daytime shots of these craft, except for the craft that buzzed our helicopter at Mach 5 in April, or no, it was May 10th, 1994. That was an extraordinary event where the pilot of the craft actually told me when to push the button on my camera as his craft flew in front of our helicopter at over 5,000 miles an hour and leaving a streak of light, and it bounced the helicopter. And it didn't. And he did that not just once, but 3 times. And every time he would tell me when to push the button on my camera. I would go to take a picture, and he'd say, wait. And it was very clear in my mind. And then I go to take the picture again. He'd say, wait. And then he said, now, and I pushed the button, and there was this flash of light in front of the helicopter, and the helicopter bounced. And it was all outlined, the ship. It was a tetrahedral-shaped ship, asymmetrical shaped tetrahedron with a pair of bright plasma lights at its nose, and the back triangular part of it was outlined in smaller white plasma lights. And there's no way you can photograph a bullet coming out of a rifle, which travels at a much slower speed than this craft traveled, without knowing exactly when to push the shutter button. So that proved to me that he was not only reading my mind, and he knew what I was doing, but he could speak to me, and I heard him, and I responded. So, but anyway, I talked about that during the conference, and he asked me if I would give a talk at his conference. And I said, well, and he said, I want you to combine both talks. And I said, well, you're going to have to give me more time. So he's given me 2 hours. And that's an amazing. So I can show all of these videos that I have during my presentation. That's one talk.
Yeah.
That's one talk. The other talk is about my experience with Bonnie, my late wife, who is Katara spiritually, and who was one of the Anunnaki, and was also the high goddess of ancient Egypt, who Isis and Nephthys worshipped. And she told me all about, who was involved with the scripture. Now, a lot of people are going to, scream heresy and not going to want to believe what I'm saying. But there are others who have been waking up to the reality that many of the characters within our scriptures are not up there with the Most High God who created the universe. They're much lower down in terms of their own authority and abilities. So the Gnostics appear to have had the right idea about what's going on, and of course the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims don't want to believe that. They want to believe that their God is the prime God of all of creation, and we're being deceived. And that's why I say in my title of my talk, Anatomy of an ET Spiritual Deception of Biblical Magnitude. And that talk is going to be very heavy on information. I mean, I have 47 slides that, and I'll be reading the words on each one of those slides with the images and telling a story that I've told you to some degree about my late wife and who she is and why I was involved, why I was chosen, and when I met my 3 children who were conceived and born before either their biological mother, Bonnie, or I had lost our virginity, before we even met. They were conceived and born. Bonnie, at age 17, became pregnant. She had never known a man, and her pregnancy ended on the 1st of August, 1967. She woke up to find her belly flat and some blood between her legs and her hymen broken, and the pregnancy was over. And she followed the scripture in Revelation chapter 12, word by word, all the way through it. And I didn't realize this until 2010 and made that connection. And I was asked to participate and protect her for 7 years, or times and half a time, in verses 15 and 16 of chapter 12. And I've put this whole puzzle together, but the implications are earth-shaking, are literally. They're undercut all religions, because they basically indicate that we have been deceived by intelligences that are not the ones that created the universe. But they want to control us.
When I was I started writing my stories in 2007, about August, when the Catholic Church broke something in that year, as did the Russians. Something happened between NASA, Russia, and the Catholic Church and me, an intelligence agency. And I'm not exactly sure what, but I was telling the truth about my husband working at NASA for Chris Kraft and hearing what the astronauts were saying. So I feel like I've done my part, because I was scared to death to come out. Plus, I was married to my husband that was, ET hybrid, but, he was born here and his sisters would never admit it. And, he had a 3D life with me for 20 years, an intelligence agency for President Reagan. And now he's passed. And then Kevin Smith, that had me on his radio show, passed. Dirk Vanderplug, that was my producer in Canada for UFO Digest, passed. And everybody that's been around me, helping me with the extraterrestrial business, has passed. But Rick Doty would never come out and help me. But he was under Air Force just doing his job over, But I think that he was part of the group that was being told to keep it under wraps when the government didn't want to expose all the classified spacecraft that the government was really making, or reverse technology. So I believe that he got off with Robert Moore, I think. I'm trying to cover all this with Jan Aldrich. And Jan has Project 1947, and he was working in CUFOS, and I got him and his buddy Barry Green. Was it Barry Greenmore? Barry? Oh, shoot. Now I've got to have Barry come on. But we can have Barry come on and tell us a lot about the history of collecting stories for years and years around the world and what they've collected. So they're making their own narrative. Apparently, Bob Brown is making his own narrative, but he prefers to do it as events with speakers, right, to show,
right,
like you're going to, PowerPoint presentations,
right,
with slides. And that's what you're going to do for Bob Brown. But you can't remember the Gordon. You don't know who Gordon is? Is it on his poster? Gordon is, I'm very curious.
I don't think it's on the poster. I know he's on the emails I get. Usually, when Steve Ellswick works with Todd Vallone on these conferences, that they are different from the one that Bob Brown and Gordon work with. So
I've got Steve Colburn of Neutron Star Notech on one of our director boards implant papers, and then he works with Daryl Sims, but I don't see. Oh, Island, Bob Brown. Let's see. Bob Brown, but I don't remember anybody else's name unless I put in for that because Janet told me to. Janet Carroll Lesson you know who Janet is. You've been on a show with her,
sure.
Aquarian Radio, and her husband, Dr.
All right, Gordon's last name is Peckrell, Peckrul. Gordon Peckrell, Peckrul.
Okay, I'm tired of talking about him not knowing who he is. So he's of Arizona. Would that be the one? Gordon Peckrell. I wonder if he's the profile. God, he's hard to look up too. Is he a construction supervisor at Raging River Exploration? Probably not.
I have no idea. I just met him in Albuquerque, and that's all I know about him. I have pictures of him.
Phoenix, Arizona. Does he live in Phoenix?
Very likely. Very likely.
There's so many of them on LinkedIn. When I was working with ABC Television, ABC Go, and their producers for ABC in New York and California, LA, they told me to use LinkedIn. That's where they found me as a psychic when they needed one for television and for doing readings. But the government found me based on the fact that I was twirling batons and knives and fire batons at a high school football team. And then we went into NASA, right? My husband worked at NASA. My first clearance papers were done May 1967 going to Washington myself. But fortunately, I had kids, so I had all my children in my husband's paper. He didn't have to go to Vietnam since he got me pregnant at 15. So I'm one of those people that had babies at 15, but I haven't been on that reality show. Haven't been on any space shows. I haven't been in any UFO events.
That's another thing.
I've only done this now.
Parent, from my wife, she had her first child at age 15, and she's an experiencer, and had.
We've got a similar story. I don't get this. Why she and I have a story.
What is? And the tall man who was carrying her
Can you hear me?
And took her through a portal. Important and later on in her life, and it to realize that types of intelligent humanoid beings in this universe. So,
well, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Were you able to hear me?
No, they cut it all off. Whatever you said, they made it cryptic.
Oh no!
What did you say?
I was talking about my former wife, Sharon Cornet, who at age 2 was abducted and taken by a tall man to through a portal to a hangar with all these booths, and each one was a different extraterrestrial sitting there, and she was taken from one booth to another and introduced to all of the different types of humanoids that exist in the universe, at least locally.
Huh. Well, I've only seen the grays and the whites and some pale blues and pale pinks, but I was called Semyase, and somebody cornered me on that because I go flying around in UFOs. But now Semyase was actually a sign of respect as a commander, Semyase. But apparently it's been used in the Billy Myers story with a tall blonde, is what, and I haven't studied the Billy Myers story, but Dr. Bruce Maccabee came on a couple of my shows and helped me start aliencontact.org. And I've been real cryptic all these years, but now it's time for me to be activated and come out not just sketchy as I've been for all these years, but I'm going to come out and own that I'm a cosmos ambassador and talk about the various levels and universes in a more direct sense. And then I would like somebody like you to help me validate what I've been doing with all my books for the Ascension Age. I was given that by extraterrestrials, and then they came and put signs on my wall, orbs, but they've given me all kind of information. And then working with my husband underground in these ships, and then off planet, and then be on a really huge ship, really long ship. So I've been on one with him, and then they picked me up here in Gulf Breeze. They had me intentionally move here to Gulf Breeze, and I became the Gulf Breeze point of contact, which I don't understand why, as a Cosmos ambassador, I have to be in Gulf Breeze, but I'm surrounded by all the military bases, and it's supposed to be a safe zone for me with other countries. Doesn't make sense to me. I've always got police officers and sheriffs all around me if I ever leave the house. I'm always escorted. You just can't see them. But that's been my entire life. I told you about the men in black in Hawaii. And then when I'd get off the planes in Hawaii, the Yakuza-looking dudes from Japan and where else was it? Somewhere in China. And they escorted my husband in China. But apparently all the people that run the richest countries or the strongest countries know who I am, and they knew Tom. And the Queen of England made my husband what do they call those ones? She knighted my husband. I guess I'm a lady now, Lord and Lady. Now just him back in 1980 or to 87 over in the UK. So, but now I was met by Viscount that was helping me in Europe, and they paid for my hotel. It was a 5-star too, 4 seasons. So somebody knows something about me, and they're not telling me. And but with you giving me a clue tonight, I think I'm waking up a little bit more. I'm going to start putting all these things that weren't important that may be important when I start pulling it all together, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you've had experiences with your husband aboard ships that you actually remember the details on it, have you written this stuff down?
Some of them are out in books, but I would never. I've got 40-some-odd books written, Bruce. T.J. Morris Publishing. Yeah, and the one that Ahmad just did, but I have a Knowing Cosmology, and it's called Ascension Age. That's the one that the government let me keep because it was just blips and burp of what I was supposed to promote in 2020. But it's Knowing Cosmology, Ascension Age, Book of Theresa. Let me see what it says. It says, Knowing Cosmology, Ascension Age, History. My work was initially based on art, culture, education, science, technology, folk life history, world religions, and philosophy. But it says it was originally published January 18th, 2014. Now, the government let me keep that one. And then I've got Cosmic Consciousness. I've got Alien UFO Contact, Taken Up. Now, when I went and did that Mid-South Con, all the little kids came up because I was like Allie on the Steven Spielberg movie in Taken Up, or Taken. I think it was just called Taken. But your picture's out there with me, Jan Aldrich, Lott, the UFO Association, Ascension Age, which was real important. Janet's picture with Dr. Ken Johnston. My husband's picture out there. But my husband came off the ship and came back to die here on the planet. They weren't going to let him come back. But they finally, I agreed to take care of him because I had my own command of ships, and he and I were equal on the planet. And there can only be one level that we were at. But I stepped down off the ship and came down to Earth, like your wife, and make sure he died on the planet per his choice. So that was part of the reason I was on the planet. But he met me on the ship before he came, and then he met me in Africa, and he met me in Europe, and we worked intelligence agency, and then I worked, and he worked. We worked all over the world, but we worked spacecraft to the planet. It sounds weird, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is strange to hear you talking about this when most people can't even relate to what you're saying.
I know, it's embarrassing. Well, because they weren't ready to hear. And if you're not ready to hear, they say don't cast pearls before swine. It's all folklore. It's folk life to me. But it's also history to some. Others, it's just fairy tales. I don't care how people think because I'm not here to save the world. I was just here to save my husband. But
okay.
I did my job like you did for Bonnie. So in that way, we're sort of equal, you know. But I thought I was after him for the extraterrestrials. And then I think those men I was telling you about that got me in Oklahoma, and the oil people, we'll call them, I don't know, the extraterrestrials, I think they were in on putting me with Tom so Tom could die. Because when I went back through there, they wanted me to be a truck driver. And they sent me to Fort Hood, 3 Corps. And I had to sign a whole bunch of Navy intelligence papers. And I'd just gotten out. I just left Hawaii. So why are they putting me back in again? They kept putting me back in the government and making me sign more contracts. They even made me sign my name on a blank piece of paper. These extraterrestrials, I don't know what they did with it. But anyway, I had the cover of being in the government, but I was really an extraterrestrial hybrid. But now J. Allen Hynek had a suspicion. So
you met J. Allen Hynek.
Yeah. And Stanton Friedman, and I met Jesse Marcel.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wait, I didn't meet Stan, but Stan and I talked on the phone. I think I've met him, but he doesn't know it because I went out to Roswell, and they kept me secret. I met that guy with the funny hair they called Bill in a airplane hangar. Do you know who Bill is?
No, I'm not familiar.
Ken Johnston brought his book to me, and Janet met him. He was in a wheelchair. His wife was in a wheelchair. But he worked with Michael Sala, Dr. Sala.
Yeah.
And he had the funniest hair, and they wanted me to meet him, so I did. But he was in with NASA for years and years. And Ken Johnston was a Marine over here where I'm at in Pensacola, but he got all confused. Some guy that was came along later in the program in the ET UFO, he wasn't in the paranormal program, but he started trying to be an official kind of guy for NASA and got real well known. And he put Ken down really bad, even though Ken was a little goofy. But the ETs can make you seem like a really goofy sort, especially in India.
I could appreciate that.
James something, James Oberg. Here we go. Have you ever heard of James Oberg?
Right. Yes.
Well, I don't know anything about him, but he seems to be a very nice man. He emailed me and YouTubed me. By the time he could come on the show sometime if he wanted to. Jim Oberg's Pioneering Space. I haven't had him on yet, but he and Ken were partners or something at one of those promoting UFO things. I think at Roswell, but they got in a controversy because they both worked at NASA. I need to do a story on both of them and find out what is y'all's deal. So I think James came along late at the end of the Russian space partnership or something. But I've seen Jim, a big man, like 6'6" or so, and that's what Ken told me. But there's a lot of people I know, so maybe we'll cross paths. Now, Jim Marr's presentation had Jim Oberg and the 14th, but I don't think Jim knows anything about me. Plus, I don't think the ETs would let him. You know, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it only certain people get to know certain things when you work in the government, or even with people like you with Bigelow?
Yes, that's basically part of their compartmentalization, and to prevent too much information from leaking out or cross-pollinating. Yeah, I would say so.
They trained me in all the clearance levels and put me in charge when they put the commanding officer, the XO, and the security officer under investigation. And I had to be in charge of all the clearances, and I felt weird, but I did it. I did my job. But I don't know if that was for putting me under pressure to see if I could handle it or what. But they said I worked for DOD, Department of Navy, and then Office of Personnel Management. So I learned how to read clearances, classified, and then I worked with contracts and gave badges in security. And I learned a whole lot of things in the government. But the lowest level was working in the highest level, I guess, was the part they didn't tell me about that I had to find out on my own. But NSA was in on it, CIA and FBI. They were all near me, and I was in and out of their offices. Yeah. But apparently I had to go around and be honest and just get the facts and do my job on people. You know, probably like Rick Doty or Bob Lazar. Me and Stan went to heads over Bob Lazar because I thought it was all over with back in the 80s when I was involved and Bob Lazar was, and I was going all the time doing investigations in Las Vegas, you know? And they tried to put me on the bus and the jet, Janet Airlines, and I was fighting to get away from them. I didn't want to go. I remember fighting big time in the airport. So I didn't want to go. And so something
that was back
inside,
in the 80s?
Yeah. Yeah. And this, I got off from the government, Navy, and going in 89 to 94, and I was, these men grabbed me, and I was telling them I don't want to go. And this black man came up, there she is. And they were, it was a big fight over me. Different groups of men and the airport. So I won. They stood off once I told them they better back off. And these men in white, they were Jesuits or something. They came up and saved me and told them, if she didn't want to go, you better do something. And so they let me go. But there was different groups of men. But a black man was the one that was pointing me out and getting me in all kind of big. It was a big commotion. What is that? Lagarin in Las Vegas. But anyway, somebody's bound to remember because it was a big scuffle.
Wow.
But that's the only time I ever had trouble with Area 51 and Janet Airlines and the buses. And up there in Pahrump, I think it was when I was talking to Art Bell and stuff, and they wanted me to come up there, and my husband brought me. But the men were real pale-looking and strange. They looked like extraterrestrials, and it was a really crazy group, and Art Bell didn't even show up. So sort of a Men in Black did, and people on the buses, and it was a Area 51 meeting. They were sort of chalky. My husband and I were not impressed. It was women and men, and it was like something out of a movie with Stephen King. It was like a Stephen King movie. But anyway, I shouldn't tell you all this stuff till I can piece it together because I'm just trying to pull it all together. It doesn't make sense to me. But for some reason, when you said what you did about the oil and them looking like us, That makes sense to me. I'll have to get that story put together for you and pull it together. I was going to give it to Bob Brown for the first time, but Bob couldn't make it happen because they'd already chosen 30, and I came in too late. Janet's the one that told me about that conference you're in, and she wanted me to go and tell my story. And then she didn't get invited, and I couldn't put all the pieces together yet. It wasn't time. So I scared Bob. I told him the truth, but, my truth was, maybe I know you in a past life, or because I don't think he was in the military, was he? So he doesn't know what I know, right? He wasn't military.
Right.
But now John Lear has talked to me with ESP. Oh, Bruce came on. Let me see, how do you get him on? Bruce, I can't get you on. Wait, this is other Bruce.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but the other Bruce can't get on. He's calling me. Bruce, you can hold on. Let me talk to him. Bruce. Oh wait, I got to use Skype. Hold on. That's I don't know how to tell him. You got to call in. Well, it's over with now. He's calling in too late. Psychically, he's not very in tune either. So hold on. He's in another country. Bruce, you'll have. Well, I'm trying to talk it. Let's see, Bruce, meet. I'm going to have you meet Bruce later, but Bruce is emotionally has issues, so I don't know how y'all get along. Now, some people love him. Oh, you may know Bruce McDonald. He's a friend of your friend Tommy's that was in the government and worked for AT&T. You know Bruce McDonald?
No.
In Peru or Puerto Rico?
No. Don't know anybody from those countries, no.
Okay, well, let me tell him. I'll get him on a show. When are we going to do another show? I will bring you on Saturday, maybe. Saturday.
Well, we did have one scheduled for the 4th of January, right?
Yeah, but you don't want to do any until then, right? Or you weren't going to do tonight's, but you did. The universe called you. But you wouldn't have found out this information, and I wouldn't have. So they let us know things in pieces. That's one thing I've always learned. When it's time, you learn. So it's something to do with this Bruce McDonald right now. Bruce, I can see you, but I don't know how to bring you on. I think he's on another channel. So I've got to learn the board, how to blend all these various channels. Different.
Well, it's 8 o'clock already here, my time, so the show's over.
Well, yeah, the show's over. So, Bruce, I really appreciate Dr. Bruce. You and I need to work together, I think, a little bit, and I'll share but it just depends on when you bring something up. I'm not sure how it works yet, but I know it's time. Let me see who this is.
There it goes.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yep, time to go.
Okay. All right. Well, it was nice, Bruce, and I believe we have something to do together, and look for that ACIR radio and sign on, okay?
Okay.
And Bruce is trying to call, but I'll explain to him. I think he's in another country, and we've got the time messed up.
All right.
So
very good.
Thank you so much, and we'll do one. Now, you want to do one Saturday? Oh, that other guy that represents Texas, he's been with me for about 10 or 12 years, since 2007. So 12 years. He represents UFO Digest in Canada, New York, with Robert Morningstar. Can you work with him on a Saturday? Is it okay to bring him on? He's not into UFOs that much, but he does done UFO shows.
Well, I wanted to bring in Melinda Romanoff. I told you about her. Robert Morningstar had her on his show, Revolution Radio, Freedom Slip, and she was dynamite. And you will really like her because she gets right into all of the government secret programs that they have involved her, and all the implants and electronics they put in her body and things of this nature. So, and I've asked her whether or not she would like to be on the show with us on the 4th of January, and she said yes, she would love to be.
Well, I think you sent me an email, but she just said she'd love to. You just copied to me. But will you ask her to send her photo and bio, please?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
Okay. And you can just tell her to send it to my agency address, and I'll get with this other person. He's trying to record now. I'll have to go record him somewhere else. Thank you so much. Okay, and I will.
Right, and I'm gonna email you. I need, since you have so many different addresses and so many different names of companies and organizations, I'm going to have to ask you to spell out which one you want me to send it to. Okay. Like, you know,
what it is for 2020, I'm combining everything under one. I have 35 websites I've taken down. I've got them still. You just can't see them. They're still in my, I've had GoDaddy.
On your hard drive, right, or on your server, but not open.
In GoDaddy. In GoDaddy, I don't keep anything on my computer. But you can email me. I've got all these business accounts, but just send it to TJ Morris Agency. AGNCY at gmail.com. That way I'm just an agent of service for all these companies that like to market their event.
I will do that. I'll have her send that information to you, so we'll get the setup, all right? All right.
Oh, okay.
You take care.
Thank
all
you.
right, TJ?
Okay, I got to do another show. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.